Rick was always tough on me on this one. He was just really tough on me. He said to me before the Friday before we were start shooting, some people were like going to Dublin to see a concert. And I was like, yeah, man, that sounds like fun. And Rick looked at me, does that sound like fun? And I said, yeah. And he's like, let me tell you how good this movie's going to be. Exactly how good you make it. That's how good it's going to be. So my vote is don't go to the concert.
So this project between you and Richard Linklater, a guy you know a little bit, I've heard. You guys started talking about this a long time ago. Can you walk us through the evolution of this project and what those really initial conversations were?
Yeah, he sent this. He is his friend Robert Capello, who's the author of the movie you just watched. And Rick called me up and he said, "Hey, Robert wrote this really weird thing. I want you to read it. I don't know what it is. What do you think? What should I say to Robert about this thing? Just would you give it a quick read?" And so I read it, and it was basically a long poem, like a 90-page poem written all in dialogue. It wasn't a script. It was like, and Rick was, and I read it, and I was like, well, so what do you think? And he said, I don't know. What do I say to Robert? Is this a short story? Is this a poem? It was all imagining what it would be like for Loren's Hart to go to the opening night party of Oklahoma. And I was like, listen, dude, this reads like a Richard Linklater film to me, man. This is a movie. And I should play that fucking part. And he's like, yeah, I think it's a movie too. Why don't we get together? Let's read it. Let's read it out loud. So we told Robert we thought it should be a movie, and he kind of changed some things about how it read. And we went to my apartment and brought a few other people, and we read it out loud. And I was just like, this is an incredible piece of writing. This is staggering. And Rick said, yeah, but you're not ready to play the part. And I said, why not? He said, this is the truth. He said, because women still want to sleep with you. and and it's a problem. And I'm like, Rick, fuck you. Like we can do this. And he's not gonna know. Seriously, let's just keep thinking about it. And so every couple of years, we would give Robert some notes in the script, and we're kind of pruning the rose bush, as it were, trying to make the roses shine and figure out more how it could be a movie. And with Linklater, he loves simplicity. He was just pushing it to being simpler, simpler, simpler. And every couple of years we do that. And about 2 years ago, I was on the Jimmy Fallon show, and Rick called me up and said, "Hey man, I saw you on the Fallon show." I said, "Yeah." Did I do okay? He goes, I, I think we're ready to make Blue Moon.
And how does Ethan Hawke take that comment?
Hey, look, man, I'm glad. I'm glad to get a good part. So
Yeah.
I don't. I don't. I'm not too delicate.
Fair enough. I'm curious though, like I think the folks who just watch this will agree. I've never seen you give a performance like this before. I mean, it's really transformative and different. And I'm curious when he first presented this to you and you said, I want to play that part. What about it spoke to you? I mean, I would imagine it
Well,
felt
I'm putting this water down so I can
okay.
stop fussing with it. What spoke to me? These are all. When I was young, right? When I was first starting in the theater and everything, we're talking the late '80s. These kind of men were my mentors. These unbelievably brilliant men who saw the theater not as a vocation but as a spiritual calling. It was much bigger than a job, and they were men of ferocious intellect and integrity. And the men I'm thinking of, they spent their youth in the closet, what we call in the closet, because it was illegal.
Hmm.
And so sexuality was in a different room, and I would never have said they were in the closet because there was no deceit involved in it. It was just a vulgarity that they didn't participate in. They didn't speak about these things, and I just felt like I understood this man completely, and I really wanted to play him. And I mean, that's where my Hart came in. What I'm making a joke about the looks and things like that, but really what I think I didn't know is back when he first sent it to me. This is like we're still finishing Boyhood when he gave me the script, right? And so what I didn't know is what the next 10 years of my life were going to be. And Rick's a strange, patient sort. And for example, when he was casting Before Sunrise, I really don't think he would have made that movie if he didn't find the right actors. He was looking for fellow filmmakers, actor filmmakers. And Julie and I both, after that movie, went on to write and direct our own movies and things, but we didn't even know that was in us. But Rick knew that was in us. And I think Rick understood that the next 10 years of my working life were going to be different. And they have been different. And there's been a lot more care. If I think back to when I read it and the work that I've done in the 10 years before this, I've really learned a lot about character acting. And I think he probably understood that that was going to happen to me. And I was able to bring to us and what we do, the hair and makeup team I met on John Brown playing the good Lord Bird, and the different things I learned playing Chet Baker, and the different things I learned on Maudie, and the different things I learned on Magnificent Seven, just different character work that I've been doing. And he just wanted, let's do that. Let's go to that end of the pool.
I did think of Good Lord Bird as different as the project is, just in terms of, I think, the extremity of what the transformation requires, but also these are very human performances, right? They're coming from the heart in a lot of ways.
They have to.
Yeah.
Or none of that stuff matters if the heart isn't there. And I think that Rick, I don't think any other director working today would have ever cast me in this part. I don't think they would have had the thought, and they would have thought it was weird if I'd asked. And but Rick knows me really well, and knows I'm a very strange person, and he knows my influences, and knows what I really care about, and knows that I really care about this guy.
Yeah, speaking of the way that he reminded you of these mentors that you're speaking of, there's so much love in the way that you play him, and also just in the nature of what the piece is, so much pain. I wonder if you can talk about kind of discovering more about him once you did commit to this project, and how you wanted to channel those two things.
Well, like one of the things I could tell you is when you talk about the pain. All right, so this movie just ended, right? You guys just watched it. So what happens next is Lorenz Hart does write 4 songs for Connecticut Yankee. But at the opening night, he's so hammered that he won't stop singing along with the cast and running up and down the aisles with the cast. And Richard Rodgers politely asked him to stop, and he refused. And they called the cops, and he was escorted out. I think it was about 9 days before he was dead. And what I felt like when you know that's where you're going, it's like that's what he's holding in all evening. That's why he's trying not to drink. He's up against a dam, and he knows the dam is going to break, and it is going to break. But my job in this evening, it hasn't broken yet. This is what I like about this. Is it's kind of like when you learn that the Rodgers and Hart and Rodgers and Hammerstein are the same Rodgers. It's kind of, then you think about this evening, and it's as if Lennon and McCartney are going to break up one night, and one of them is going to start a band bigger than the Beatles, and the other is going to die. That's how hard that's how high the stakes are. And I was like, this is pitch. This is a wild 90 minutes in a person's life, where there's an intersection happening. And so I just wanted to fill it all up so you could feel that intersection.
There's a incredible amount of dialogue in this movie, and and it flows beautifully. But there's a lot of technical work to pulling off something like that. What can you say just about the preparation and maybe how it was unique from other projects?
One of the great things that I would say to young actors is the value. There's like some of my favorite actors, Jeff Bridges, Jack Nicholson, the list is long, have never done a play. And you can be an excellent actor and never do a play. But once done Henry IV parts 1 and 2, once you've played Hamlet, once you've played the Scottish play, once you've played all those other, you it's not that much. This is not that much dialogue.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It's not that much. And that's part of the. It's like being an athlete, like training. If you train running a 10K, a 5K is easy, right? I mean, you can understand the math.
Yes.
I had one whiskey before I came here. I was having such a great time, so
we're having a great time.
I'm not sure I'm landing the plane of every answer, but I'm trying.
You very much are.
Okay.
I'm curious what you could say even just about the first scene and the way the film opens, and really just throwing us into this conversation and really his world for the night.
The first scene is the hardest. Well, there's a little prologue of sorts, but once he walks into the bar, what Rick and I are trying to do, I don't know if it's effective, but what we're trying to do is slow everybody down. Just slow down. By the time Rogers leaves the party with the woman he's in love with, we've witnessed a man in front of a firing squad. I mean, it's a full-on car accident when they walk out of that bar, as far as his life is concerned. And for you to see the minutia inside, the moments inside moments, he's got to slow everybody. We're so used to being entertained at such a high level of pyrotechnics, and he's just trying to slow everybody down so that your biorhythms change and you start to notice the nuances of things rather than expect to be entertained every second. And that's hard to do, and some people can't make that jump, and I get that. And it was very hard for me, because if I try to make those first 15 minutes too entertaining, if you push, then you kind of blow the whole point of it. You have to just sit back and start being in that bar and start watching one person come in after the other and try to seduce people into a different pace.
I want to ask you, because you did not shoot this in Sardis.
No.
You shot this in Ireland,
True.
quite far away. Did that change the dynamic and the way it felt like you were making this movie, because you are in a kind of bubble? You're not obviously in New York coming from.
Well, we're never going to get to shoot it in Sardis.
Yeah.
They're never going to close Sardis down for a couple months so we can shoot there. It's never going to happen. So you're going to have to build it somewhere, and you can build it in Jersey, and I guess that'd be easier. But Bobby Cannavale and I went to Sardis before we got on the plane to go to Ireland, and the idea of bringing it with us. And part of what I thought was so important about the casting of Bobby Cannavale is he just is New York to me. You just feel New York in the way he tosses the napkins on the thing. You know that he's bartended. I knew he would give us that. And Sardis is a mythic place anyway.
Yeah.
It's 1940. Sardis now doesn't look like the architecture of the building has changed a lot, and the design of the building has changed a lot. So you were going to have to build it differently anyhow. And Bobby was absolutely essential to that. There was, Bobby. There's a lot of wonderful people that helped, but Bobby, Margaret, and Andrew Scott were invaluable. The movie would never. I get a lot of attention from the movie, but they make it work. So I'm grateful to them.
I'd love to talk a little bit about your work with Margaret Qualley in this movie. I think it's one of the more fascinating and for me at least, in a good way, hard to parse parts of this movie, because it's almost like a distraction, right? The way that she functions in the movie. And at times for me, I was trying to figure it out, because of course this is a queer character. It's a little bit, it's not direct. So how did you and Margaret play those scenes? What can you say about that?
Well, for me, it was really clear. If you've created with somebody, when you make something together, it's so intimate. You're in each other. And it's not sexual, but it's intimate. And the intimacy is intense. And Richard Rogers and Lorenz Hart were intimate together for 25 years. And this man is leaving him. And that pain is like a lance in his chest. But it's so bad he can't even look at it. And so I came to view Elizabeth as kind of like a person self-cutting. You know, if you know anybody, people, it's just a pain you can control and you can understand and can make sense because I can't deal with the real pain. Um, and so, and it's written very well
Yeah.
about the ways in which he's distracting himself with her. You know, he says to her, "I'm reborn with you." This is an imaginative this rebirth. This rebirth is not happening, but he imagines it could if she would just love him back. And I don't know. I find it very human and very moving
Yeah.
because it doesn't make any sense at all, like a lot of our behavior. But the more you think about it, you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And strangely, the truth is that, you know, Lorenz Hart was, you know, what we call queer now, yet for sure. I mean, I definitely think he was probably sleeping with men later that night.
Right.
But he really wanted to be married.
Yep.
He asked, you know, that story where he proposed to the actress whose name escapes me right now, Vivian Siegel. That's true. He proposed to her several times. Seriously, bought her a ring. I mean, he had a vision of himself as a married man and wanted that. And so all that messy real life stuff, I just thought it was good writing.
Absolutely. Speaking of messy real life stuff, my favorite scene in the movie is you and Andrew Scott on the staircase. It's heartbreaking and really it leads. It's where you say we're leading in a lot of ways, and what this breakup is. So
For me, that's the heart of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think Rick did a great job. It's so obvious, but wonderful just putting it on the stairway.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
One's going up and one's going down. You know, and the way that Andrew plays it is so beautiful because a lot of us we've either dealt with addiction, we have had loved ones who deal with addiction, and you get to a place with somebody you love where you know you can't help them, and you love them, but I feel that from Andrew so powerfully in his performance of a desire to be kind, and a desire to be loving, and a desire to protect his boundaries, and that was my favorite scene to shoot too, because the level of difficulty was extremely high. You know, there's all these extras passing us by, and it's very, and the music of the scene is very hard to figure out. It's like a 10-page scene, and what's the rhythm of it? Are they so angry it's slow? Are they so angry it's fast? Are they tripping all over each other? Are there pregnant pauses? What's the music of it? It was extremely difficult, and I will, in my gratitude to Andrews, say that it was an incredible day. We worked so hard, and when this part was really difficult. So I get to set, and I'd change my clothes, and I'd leave my phone in my dressing room, and I wouldn't come back till the end of the day, right? And I put my regular clothes back on, I pick up my phone, and there's like a series of texts from my wife. How's Andrew feel? Did you tell him congratulations? You know, I call it my wife, congratulations for what? You know, like, he's just got nominated for like 10,000 Emmys. He's like a really big deal. And so you got to be supportive. And I'm like, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. And I go, I knock on his dressing room chair, and he's like washing his face. I'm like, hey, congratulations on all this great stuff. He's like, oh, thanks. And he's finished washing. All right, great work today. And it's like, I just spent 12 hours acting with the guy. He didn't bring it up. He didn't take a phone call from his agent. He didn't ask for 15 minutes. He, you know, wasn't expecting the crew to bring out a freaking cake or something. And and I'm just telling you, I see a lot of that, you know, and it's so
I'm
boring.
sure.
and I just thought I loved this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he just wanted to do a good job that day.
Yeah.
And I think he's a wonderful actor. And it's hard to you know, we had basically 2 scenes to put a 25-year relationship in. And so I enjoyed that.
So, in a scene like that, where you are thinking about the rhythm, thinking about even just the tone between the two of you, you're making an independent movie. I'm not sure what you schedule yet, but did you have that kind of room to play around?
No, we had no room to play around. We had 15 days to make the movie, right? So it's like it's we were at the rap party and people say, "Did you have a good time?" And I would look at Rick and I was like, "Give me 10 more days, I might have had a fun time."
Yeah.
There was no fun. I mean, it was a lot of preparation has to go in. You get these opportunities, you get these windows of opportunity, and it's not as good as you could do. It's as good as you could do on that Tuesday, given the fact that those idiots are an hour and a half late, and that person doesn't know their lines, and it's raining, and so the people's hair has to be redone. These things that don't matter to the audience. It's not what you pay your money for. You want to, but
Yeah.
it's hard. So yeah, there wasn't time. Um, the great thing about Andrew, Bobby, Margaret, the gang, everybody was down to rehearse, and so we had a lot of time to rehearse and play. Because there was one location. Like once we
Yeah.
got there, it was like I remember Rick was always tough on me on this one. He was just really tough on me. He said to me before the Friday before we were start shooting, some people were like going to Dublin to see a concert. And I was like, yeah, man, that sounds like fun. And Rick looked at me, does that sound like fun? And I said, yeah. And he's like, let me tell you how good this movie's going to be. Exactly how good you make it.
Hmm.
That's how good it's going to be. So my vote is don't go to the concert. and I was just like, Jesus, all right.
That's a director who knows you, though, right?
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you just said. You'd said about character acting and getting more into that over the last few years. Is there something maybe you've learned about yourself as an actor through projects like this, The Good Lord Bird, playing Chet Baker, like disappearing a little bit more maybe than you did earlier in your career?
Yeah. Um, just identity and what it is and what it isn't. When I was when I was younger, I would have a hard time. Like, for example, I'd be offered a movie where the character had an English accent, and my response would be get an English actor. I just was like, that won't be honest. That won't be truthful. It was all about um, being completely honest in front of the frame, and having um, as little baggage between the f- the lens and myself. The character, blurring the lines between character and performer, and then you get like 33 and you start to think, who is me? So, like, I speak this way because why? And is that an essence of me? If I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, would I speak this way? And would I? And you start asking yourselves all the accoutrements of identity. What is the self? What isn't the self? And you start to realize it's a lot more flexible
Hmm.
than you thought. And it doesn't, you don't smoke Marlboro cigarettes because of the essence of you. You smoke Marlboro because of something that happened to you, and some other things could have happened to you, and you would still be you. And you start thinking these kinds of thoughts, and they lead you to a wider lens of who you are capable of being, that would be honest,
Hmm.
and that would be truthful. Because the truth is still the most important thing in what we do. We all smell when something is dishonest, it smells bad. When you have an agenda with the audience, when, whatever those things are. But so if I had to put it, it's kind of a more expansive view on identity and what that means.
Hmm.
And that's where the profession of being a performer becomes really beautiful,
Yeah.
because it becomes like, I remember when I was younger, I got to have dinner with Vanessa Redgrave, And if you have dinner with Vanessa Redgrave, it felt like meeting like I'm forgetting the right word for it, but a woman who's in charge of a convent or something.
Sure.
I mean, she was amazing.
Yeah.
And you realized, oh, this woman has spent her entire life with some of the greatest minds, doing guided meditation on Tennessee Williams, a guided meditation on Anton Chekhov, a guided meditation on Shakespeare, a guided meditation on. She's dived deep into the imagination of playing revolutionaries, playing nurses, playing mothers, playing teachers, playing. Her view of humanity is extremely expansive because her imagination has led her to wear the clothes of all these different people and try to see the world from these angles. And she's extremely intelligent. She's absorbed all that, and she has a lot to give because of it. And that's when the profession seems bigger and better and worth one lifetime starts to not be enough.
Yeah.
And then it gets really interesting.
Yeah. We do have to wrap. A few housekeeping items before we wrap. Blue Moon is out in New York and LA on October 17th, nationwide October 24th. If you like what you saw, I bet you did. Tell your friends. Our thanks to Film Independent.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. That was really fun.